What's up, everyone? How's it going? Today is February 4th, 2022, and I wanted to do a short video this morning on some synchronicity that I and other decoders are having with this year's Super Bowl. So this is piggybacking off of a couple things that happened over the past few days. First, we start with a post that Zachary K. Hubbard made on YouTube. And of course, Zach being the godfather of Gematria, so to speak. So essentially what happened here is Zach made a post about how it just so happened that Joe Burrow was first mentioned in his book Number Games on page 213. And this is a really important number to Joe Burrow. Notice how Joe Burrow, his full name equals 213. He's being called Joey Franchise, which equals 213. And he just overcame a 21-3 deficit to play in the Super Bowl, which is on 213, in the 213 area code in Los Angeles. So Zach has an eye for these things. He saw how bizarre it was that it just so happens that page 213 is where this name was mentioned. A couple of days later, the channel Decode Your Reality made a video as a response to this synchronicity explaining that there's actually more layers to this. Now, I'm not going to go deep into it. This video is linked below in the description. Of course, Decode Your Reality and I have slightly different ways of going about things, but ultimately, I believe we have similar views on everything that's happening, right? And he explained that, there's 263 words before Joe Burrow is mentioned in this page. And that's the 56th prime number. Joe Burrow now going to Super Bowl 56, among other things, right? There's always more to these synchronicities. Back in September of 2020, I made a video addressing Zach, talking about how he was coded alongside L. Ron Hubbard on the basis of them having the same name, or last name, and how he's also coded into the movie The Number 23. And in this video, I explain as best I can that I believe this is all natural. And the reason I say this is because I myself seem to be coded along with movies that teach Gematria in Hollywood. So just to recap this real quick, as Zach pointed out on his blog, he was born on July 21st, 1983, which just so happens to be the coldest day ever recorded. Lowest temperature recorded on Earth, July 21st, 1983. The temperature that day was negative 89 degrees Celsius. Now, the number 89 really stands out because this is the number that Zachary Keefe Hubbard shares with Lafayette Ronald Hubbard. The name Hubbard equals 56, and when you measure from Zach's birth to L. Ron's death, you get the 56th prime number. L. Ron was 74 years old, and now Zach is teaching Simple English Gematria, all 74 in the alphabetic order. And there's so much more connecting these two men. In fact, when we look at the number 23, in this film, Jim Carrey has a scene where he teaches people Gematria, that A equals 1, B equals 2, all the way through Z is 26. The name James E. Carey, his full name with the middle initial, just like Zachary K. Hubbard, both have the same 1300 Gematria. And the word Gematria equals the 13th Fibonacci number. Zach was 23 years old when this movie came out. 23 is also a number that I have in my full name, 203. I was born with 23 birth numerology. Zachary K. Hubbard, 2030. Zach Hubbard, 203. My parents were married on the date leaving 203 days in the year. So this all makes sense if you think about it from the grand scheme of things, that, I came along, I found his work, I helped develop I did develop this calculator, which is helping spread the work, right? I mean, Zach did great work before this, but this really took it to the next level. And it just makes sense that I have coding connected to Jim Carrey, who, by the way, is 23 years older than me. We also have the same Gematria, just like my birth numerology. So what really woke me up to this was back in 2017, one of Dan Barron's friends had a blog for a short amount of time. And one of his blog posts was actually about me, and this helped open my eyes to things. So what he did is he watched the movie Pi, and he thought, wow, this movie is very similar to what's going on with Gematria. In this film, the main character, played by Sean Gullett, designs a program that runs some gematria, or analyzes the Hebrew Torah, and is able to find out the 216-letter name of God, which then starts this big drama. You know, there's people chasing after him. So this reminded him of the gematria calculator, and he found out that the name Max Cohen, which is Sean Gullett's character in the movie, matches my name. On top of that, his real name matches my character name. Sean Gullett and Gematrinator sharing the same 141 gematria. 141, also the value of Jim Carrey. 141 and 60, just like Gematrinator, 141 and 60. Sean Gullett, the actor, 141. So I saw this post and I thought, wow, that's amazing. I looked up Sean Gullett and saw that he was born on June 4th. And that happens to be my birthday. So I'll talk more about this in a second. We'll get there. But let's go back to the sync that Zach had with the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the name Hubbard equals 56. And this year will be Super Bowl 56. So this perhaps explains why Zach had this synchronicity, because Zach is already connected to the Bengals. Check this out. The coach of the Cincinnati Bengals is named Zach, which is short for Zachary. Zach Taylor was born in the year 1983, which, as we just mentioned, is the same year that Zach Hubbard was born, 1983. Zach Taylor was born on May 10th of 1983. Which is the 130th day of the year. And that stood out right away because Zach Hubbard, born on a date with 130 numerology. So that alone is interesting, but consider that the Bengals also have a player named Hubbard. Sam Hubbard had a pretty big game against the Kansas City Chiefs. He was running all over the field. He had 2 sacks and another tackle for loss. So a really big game. And the name Sam sticks out because the guy who first decoded me alongside Sean Gullett, his name was Sam. And when you look at Sam Hubbard's birthday, look at this. He has birth numerology of 130. 6 plus 29 plus 95. Remember 130, the number that Zach Hubbard shares with Zach Taylor, as well as their numerology here, with Zachary Hubbard's name, 1300. But Sam Hubbard also has birth numerology of 149. See this? And that's the ordinal value of Zachary K. Hubbard, 149. But guys, it gets even stranger. When you write out the name Sam Hubbard, it sums to 89. Recall, this is the number that Zach shares with L. Ron Hubbard, born on the day that was 89 degrees below zero. Now, when you measure between their birthdays, you get exactly 623 weeks. And that stands out because when you write out the number 89 in Gematria, it sums to 623. Now, someone could look at this and call this a coincidence, but consider that I pointed out this connection earlier this past year. Remember back in August, we had the Field of Dreams game between the White Sox and Yankees. And this game was all about the number 89. The movie Field of Dreams came out in the year 89. The game was introduced by Kevin Michael Costner, whose name equals 89. The winning pitcher of the game was born in the year 89. And the final score of this game would go on to be 8-9. Consider that the Bengals haven't played in the Super Bowl since the year '89. They're going up against Matt Stafford. Stafford equals 89, and he currently has 89 career victories. Now, this walk-off home run that ended this game was hit by Tim Anderson, who's known more for his speed than his power. And he was sitting on 89 career stolen bases. But look at his birthday. June 23rd, written 623, like the number 89. And guess who he hit the home run off of? Zach Britton. A guy named Zach. I mean, what are the odds of all this? I mean, how many people are named Zach? This is like the 202nd most popular name as of a couple years ago. So what is it? 1 in every 3, 4, 500 people? These are amazing alignments. Sam Hubbard wears number 94 on his jersey. And this stood out to me as well because Zach Hubbard is called a conspiracy theorist by many. Of course, many who are ill-informed. But isn't it interesting that the number 94 has perfect overlap with the word conspiracy? One of these numbers is 147. 94 and conspiracy both equaling 147. Now that's a number connected to Freemasonry. Think about how Freemason equals 147. When you write out Scottish Rite of Freemasonry, it sums to 1487. Now, Zach will be 14,087 days old on the day of the Super Bowl. Now, does this mean he's a Freemason? Now, to me, that's a very simple and unimaginative way of looking at this. See, Zach has done a lot of work to expose Freemasonry, as well as the Jesuit order. And his birthday falls 72 days after the birthday of Zach Taylor. Think about how Jesuit order equals 72. Masonry equals 105, like Zach Taylor's 10-5 birthday. And of course, Taylor, the coach of Cincinnati, consider that Cincinnati is a secret society, kind of like Freemasonry, and it's connected to George Washington, who was, of course, an acknowledged Freemason. So again, I'm not in any way insinuating that he's a Freemason, but this coding exists somehow. It's just, again, you guys use your brains, use your critical thinking, and what can possibly be responsible for all of these connections? So with that covered, I want to look at back at this guy, Sean Gillette, and how this actually points to a synchronicity with me that I'm having with the Super Bowl. So every once in a while, someone comes to me and asks me to decode something that's personal to them. And, you know, I don't always have time to do it, or I don't always make time to do it, but occasionally I'm in the mood and I'll do that. So last week someone approached me asking about the death of a family member. I'm going to try to hide as many, details as I can because I don't know how much he wants this shared, but it was really bizarre, and I found out that I was connected to this as well. So let me quickly explain. He brought this news story to me because he was having troubles making numeric connections. And there's not a whole lot to go off of in this story. But what really jumped out at me is the connections to Avril Lavigne. So the girl who was in this story, she was struck by a car on her first day of high school on her way to the bus stop. She was a big fan of Avril Lavigne, listened to her music, had posters on her wall, but also friends often said that she looked like Avril Lavigne. So in reading this, I thought, okay, this is going to be connected to Avril Lavigne and her music. Now, at the time, Lavigne only had one album, and that album was called Let Go. So what I discovered is that if you measure from the release of this album to the date that this girl was struck by the car, it was exactly 65 weeks. And on top of this, the girl who was hit was 65 days after her birthday. See how she was hit on 15th Street and Eloise Avenue, and she was 15 years old. So 15-year-old hit on 15th and Eloise. Well, when you write out 15, it sums to 65. So does Eloise. 65. And there's more to this as well. Eloise is 34, so is 15. And the date that she was hit had 34 numerology. This was 340 days after Avril's birthday. Her first album came out 340 days after this girl Marissa's birthday. So, I found those things for him, and it was enough where he was like, wow, that's pretty incredible. Because this is the world we live in. We can't escape these numerical synchronicities. They're all around us all the time. But here's what's connected to me about this, is that June 4th, 2002, the date of this album, this was my 17th birthday. And let's look at how this connects me to Pi. The main character of Pi, Sean Gillette, born on June 4th, which was exactly 17 years before I was born, June 4th, 1985. Consider how the word birthday even equals 604 in Gematria, like the date 604. This actor's name matches my character name, so to speak, 141 and 183. And in the film, his character name matches my real name. The name Max equals 43 like Derek, Cohen equals 90 like Takuri, and Max Cohen equals 83 like Derek Takuri. On top of this, notice how the name Max equals 11 and 16, two of the values in the word pi. My name Derek equals 25 and 29, the other two values in the word pi. And the movie came out 1 month, 6 days after our birthdays. Pi summing to 16. In the square number cipher, the word pi equals 337. And this is important because in the film, Sean Gillette plays a mathematician, which sums to 337. 337 is the 68th prime number, and Sean Gillette was born in the year 68. And when this movie came out, he was 30 years and 37 days old, all syncing up with 337. Well, on my birth certificate, my full name equals 337 in the reverse order. And when this movie came out, I was 13 years and 37 days old for another 337 connection. So here I'm 17 years younger exactly than Sean Gillette. And on my 17th birthday, we had the release of this Avril Lavigne album. And I commonly said that on my 17th birthday, this is the day that I was gifted a cell phone. Got my first cell phone on this day, my 17th birthday. So you can say that I entered the Matrix, so to speak. Well, the Matrix is the name of the people who produced this album. The Matrix, it's a team, a production team, connected to Avril Lavigne. So in this news story, where the girl gets hit by the car, this was a real event, the guy who struck her was named Jesse Whitworth. And in all my years of decoding, I've never done any work on anyone named Whitworth. However, in the news this week, one of the players in the Super Bowl, whose name is Whitworth, has been in the news. And what really blew my mind is that the author of this article says, what is this, high school? Because they're arguing over Twitter? This girl who was struck by a car was struck on her first day of high school. And guess who he's defending? He's defending his wife because this guy who played for the 49ers was trolling his wife on Twitter. This man's wife is named Melissa. This girl who was hit by a car is named Marissa. So I looked up Andrew Whitworth here, and I couldn't believe it. He wears number 77, which connects to the guy from this story, Jesse Whitworth. The name Jesse equals 77. The name Jesse Whitworth equals 77. Now, if you look at Sumerian Gematria, here we have the alphabetic order times 6. The name Jesse Whitworth equals 1212. And look at when Andrew Whitworth was born. 1212, December 12th. And if you multiply 12 times 12, it sums to 144, like the name Whitworth. 144. Also, this guy was born in December of 1981, which is just 3 months. It's actually less than 3 months before this other Whitworth was born. They're both the same age. See how he was 21 in 2003? It looked like he was born in March of 82. So right around the same time as this guy, Andrew Whitworth. And I just couldn't believe it. Like, what are the odds that we get a news story with a guy named Whitworth right after I have this strong synchronicity with someone who came to me asking about this story? And of course, you have the word Hitworth, hit by the car. And the guy says this is like high school. I mean, I can't explain how much this kind of stuff blows my mind because, it's not just the news and sports that's coded by the numbers. It really is all of us. And I can't share the experience of decoding something and having your mind blown unless you yourself find similar things in your own life. But when you do, I promise you it'll really open your eyes. So that's really all I got for this video, I believe. Not too much more to dig into. There are more syncs with Avril Lavigne and all of this, but you guys get the point. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for everybody for jumping in. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, comment. You guys know the drill. We'll talk to you soon. Peace, love, and God bless. See ya.